Third time's the charm, as they say. Namco decided to give the Pac-Man World Series one last hurrah in 2005, and it just so happened to fall on the character's 25th birthday. So, you're probably thinking they've got something real special cooked up for this last outing, right? Well, yeah, it was definitely special, I'll say. Ironically, this game also had a troubled development process just like its elder sibling, and originally started out as something completely different, with art direction and concepts being spearheaded by Don frickin' Bluth of all people. But to no surprise, the ambitious project was scrapped and reworked into what we currently know as Pac-Man World 3, developed by not Namco studio Blitz Games. From my own personal experience over the years, World 3 is certainly my least favorite and the most infamous title in the series thus far. So let's take a deeper look at it to see why exactly that is. Despite being developed by a totally different studio than the first two games, Pac-Man World 3 feels kinda like how you'd expect, but something is clearly off, and nothing encapsulates that feeling quicker than this empty and uninspired start screen. What happened to the music and punchy energy from before? Now we just got clouds. How exciting. This new adventure dropped on November 15th, 2005 for pretty much everything, as well as the PSP and Nintendo DS, and was also intended to celebrate Pac's 25th birthday, which is verbally addressed in the game's story.
Well, you only turned 25 once.
Oh yeah, and speaking of which, the most shocking new addition to the World franchise is that now our main character and everybody else can finally talk. Wow! Now, I will admit, on paper this idea sounds concerning given the type of character we're dealing with here, even though it's also not the first time he's ever talked in media before, but surprisingly enough, they actually pulled it off. In fact, I'd even say the voice acting and dialogue was pretty good and got a chuckle out of me every once in a while. It feels like they put more effort into that than everything else. Now, the story of Pac-Man World 3 begins in a similar fashion to World 1, where Pac-Man arrives home to celebrate his birthday with family, but this time he gets snatched up and sent away to another dimension before he can even blow out the candles.
Well, at least this birthday's still better than my 20th.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
He suddenly arrives in this new location called the Spectral Realm and is greeted by the old villain from World 1, who is apparently an ally now. And he's not the only ghost joining the crew. In this game, there is a greater threat to the universe that calls for Pac-Man and the ghosts of his past like Pinky and Blinky to team up together to fight him. And this so-called greater threat is a pint-sized, annoying megalomaniac twerp named Irwin, and he is not actually threatening or memorable in the slightest. Actually, he's the worst villain out of the whole trilogy. Same thing goes for his lackey, whose name I forgot and don't care about. Now, that briefly sums up the story, but what is there to say about the gameplay itself? Well, for starters, it is still a platformer at heart that takes a much greater focus on minute-to-minute beat-em-up situations with returning mazes and puzzle elements. But unfortunately, everything feels worse here somehow. Pac-Man can still jump, rev roll, and butt bounce as per usual, and the influence of combat mechanics can be felt immediately. Now he can punch with this lackluster 3-hit combo as a primary attack, in conjunction with new power pellet abilities for dealing with waves of enemies, which will be very often. All of his base moves have been regressed in some way, like having your jump height slightly shortened, your butt bounce limited to only 3 hits in a row with a shockwave at the end, and finally not being able to stop on a dime during the rev roll. They still serve their initial purposes, but not quite as good as before. The level progression has also been simplified even further, as now there is no hub world or map screen. You just instantly blip to the next level after a cutscene, making things much more streamlined, which is not inherently bad, but just screams of laziness. I'm not sure if it's still remnants of the original project shining through, but I'm not really a fan of the whole apocalyptic aesthetic and colors of this game. It just makes for a dour, bland, and empty feel that doesn't remind me of Pac-Man World at all. And the quiet, ambient soundtrack leaves much to be desired too. Mind you, I'm not against there being a new setting for this story, I just wish it was more appealing to look at, that's all. The levels are much bigger than ever before while still being linear and designed around puzzle platforming challenges involving spinning switch pads, wall jumping, running on disappearing floors, pack dot chains, occasionally playing as both Pinky and Blinky, destroying energy siphons, and pole sliding. Also, how can I forget about the absolute worst new addition to the gameplay, the Spectral Ghost sections. Good lord, these parts were annoying, and they went on for way too long. They showed up so frequently that it felt like padding for runtime. I'd say the combat in general was also a frustrating slog most of the time. Doing the same repetitive combo and bounce over and over and over again damn near wore me out. The new Power Pellet abilities make it slightly more bearable, but not by much. And don't even get me started with those fucking metal scorpions. They were so irritating to fight. There's even a part halfway through the story where you pilot a giant mech suit Talkman to fight off hordes of monsters, and it sucks too. What a surprise. All of that is capped off by two boring as hell boss fights against Irwin that play exactly the same. Boring! Now the collectibles you gather in this game are mostly untouched, but somehow feel less important than previously. You still have fruits, dots of course, Galaxians, and these new 25th anniversary silver statues and trading cards. Most of your spoils can be viewed outside the story with the museum feature as well as replay mazes and watch behind the scenes footage. But despite all of that, unfortunately with everything this title has to offer, it still did not leave a great impression on me, whether it be today or 2 decades ago at first launch. So I guess I can definitively say that Pac-Man World 3 just missed the mark, I'm afraid. The reliable formula that worked well enough in 1 and 2 kind of fell through the floor this time around. Like I said, the only saving grace for me was the character interactions and witty dialogue, but that wasn't quite enough to save the monotonous gameplay. And I'm sure there are some people out there who do enjoy this game for what it is, which is okay. Also, I don't solely blame the development team for how this finale turned out. Keep in mind, it wasn't even supposed to be a world game in the first place, and Blitz had to work with the scraps left behind by Namco's mismanagement, so take that as you will. I played through this game again recently to prepare for this review, and that will probably be the last time. I'm certain this title could be redeemed with a repack style remaster, but I highly doubt Namco will even try to touch this game again anytime soon. But who knows what the future holds. So with all that said, how do you feel about Pac-Man World 3? There's quite a bit to say about it, that's for sure. If you enjoyed it or hated it, feel free to discuss in the comments, and don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel so the YouTube algorithm will treat me good. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.
What's for dinner?
You are.
You heard the lady. I believe now's the part where you run.
Damn, this is the thanks they get for helping you save the world? I guess some things never change, huh?